Josh, can you hear me back there? Yeah. All right, folks. I think we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody, folks who are here and to folks who are tuning in virtually. Hope you are all having a wonderful Saturday. It's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's still Saturday, right? Today felt like 2 days long for folks who are tuning in and may not know. We had a really wonderful event this morning at the Texas State Capitol. We had the Chalk for Trans Lives, where last I checked, I think we've raised over $16,000 for organizations here in Texas. That's the number I think 2 days ago. And so we had a beautiful trot. Folks from around the city came and yeah, we spent some time in community and all that good stuff. And so that's why I was saying it felt like 2 days long, because that was this morning. Now I'm here not sweaty in some nice clothes. But so we'll go ahead and get started. Before we kick off the panel, I am going to share a land acknowledgement for folks who are attending here, as well as folks who are on the internet. 1 second. As we gather here in person and virtually, we must acknowledge that the ground beneath our feet is historically the home of Indigenous peoples, many of whom have been forced to leave for other lands. Native nations negotiated government to government, preserving their sovereign land, rights, and privileges through treaties. When the land was not ceded through treaties, it was stolen from our Indigenous relatives. This acknowledgement recognizes the first caretakers of this land, the suffering they've endured, and the sacrifices made by Native people. I am currently an uninvited guest on the land of the Cumanos peoples, the Coahuiltecan peoples, the Comanche, and the Lipan, Apache, and Tonkawa peoples. Maybe we remember that Indigenous peoples are not a people of the past, but are here with us now, continuing to demonstrate their talents and gifts amidst a backdrop of ongoing colonialism and oppression. I hope this acknowledgement will inspire all of us, whether we're here in person or virtually, to stand in solidarity with Native nations. Solidarity looks like donating time and money to Indigenous-led organizations and communities, amplifying the voices of Indigenous people, leading grassroots movements, intentionally learning about the rich history of the Indigenous peoples that inhabit and care for the land we currently stand on, including space for meaningful land acknowledgements in events and presentations, and of course, returning land to its original stewards. With that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Alex Del Rosario. My pronouns are they, he. I am the national organizer with National Center for Transgender Equality. For folks who might not be familiar with National Center for Transgender Equality, we were founded in 2003. Our 20th anniversary is this coming fall, or yes. We're based in DC, however, many of us live across the nation. I myself am based in Colorado. My wonderful colleague here is based in Austin. But our main role really is to do everything that we can to protect and advance trans rights and to protect our community. And so that looks like advocacy work, organizing work, among other things. And one of the things that we're really excited about is the launch of our organizing department just last year, where currently we're trying our best to support all the anti-trans bills that have been introduced this session. For folks who might not know, there are over 500 anti-trans bills that have been introduced, which is the most that has ever been introduced in the legislation. And we are seeing an incredible effort by grassroots organizations on the ground who are fighting these anti-trans bills like never before as well. So I just want to highlight that. Before I pass it off to Cal, I want to thank the Austin Cinemakers Space for hosting this panel. Thank you so much. They have just been so awesome and have been such a joy to work with. For folks who are interested in getting into filmmaking or have that interest, I myself have never really been interested in filmmaking except for this week when I entered the space and met our team. But yeah, thank you, Awesome Filmmaker Space, for hosting this panel. I also want to thank Liquid Death for the water as well. For folks who might not know, we do have Liquid Death in the back if you are feeling like you need a refreshment, and Lush for the products as well. And with that being said, I will pass it off to my co-moderator, Cal.
Thank you, Alex. I'm Cal. My pronouns are he, they, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be here sharing this space with all of you, sharing this space with our incredible panelists who I'm so excited to introduce or to have you introduce and hear what you have to say. So honored to be co-moderating with Alex and working on so many incredible projects with them and the incredible team at the National Center for Trans Equality. There are so many groups and individuals who have contributed their time and labor, as Alex mentioned, to making this event possible, to making other events possible. And I think all of us in this room in some way are doing the most that we know how and can to protect and advocate for trans people here in the state of Texas and beyond. So it's an honor and a privilege to be one individual who is doing that. I will say, I think the way I'm going about that is perhaps a little unconventional. I've decided to run across America from California to Florida. Thank you. It's a bit of a ways. And mostly I love running, but I wanted to, channel my passions, which are athletics and education. I myself am a high school teacher, to affect change that has never been more needed. This is an unprecedented time that we're living in. So I'm using my Run Across America to, do two things, or to address the two main platforms that these anti-trans sentiments are being waged on, which is inclusion of trans people in sports and access to gender-affirming healthcare, which are personal to me as a trans athlete who requires access to gender-affirming healthcare, but are also the battlegrounds that this legislation is being waged on. So I'm hoping that this run will be the connective tissue from California to Florida to connect communities that are most impacted by this legislation. It's my personal belief that in a time of ignorance and hatred and fear, that the antidote to that is community, education, and love. And that is what brings us all here together to do today, is to be in community with one another, to share this love that we have, to take care of each other. And yeah, it's a privilege to be here. And thank you all for coming. Thank you as well to the Awesome Cinemaker Space for making this happen. This would not have happened without you. Thank you to NCTE for all the incredible work you do. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all of you. We're going to have a great program for you tonight.
Awesome. So just to give you all a quick run through what to expect this evening, we are going to have our incredible panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and jump into the conversation. Expect maybe 45 minutes, and we'll probably wrap up in an hour and 15, more or less. And our hope is to take questions from the audience, and so as you listen, feel free to write down any questions you have, and then we'll make sure to bring it all of mic to ask your question. And if we don't get a question answered tonight because of time or other things, please meet with one of the panelists or myself, or if you are attending virtually, you can send an email out to ncte@transequality.org, and we'll do our very best to answer your question in a timely manner. Awesome. With that being said, would love for our amazing panelists to introduce themselves. I think to start, name, pronouns, your role or organization you're with, and what is your connection to Texas? Does anybody want to start? I'll go first. Perfect, Ileana. Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody. My name is Ileana Bocanegra, and I've lived in Texas my entire life. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm the multimedia specialist at NCTE. Growing up in Rio Grande Valley, right by the border of Mexico, I know that area very, very well, in that I also had to leave that area in order to feel comfortable to be myself, but I still have so much love for that community. And I'm hoping that as we continue to find more education and resources, that I can be there more often and feel comfortable there more often.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Ernest McFarland. I am the founder and executive director of the Mahogany Project in Houston, Texas. My pronouns are Bernie, she, her, hers, they, them. And my relationship to Texas, I think I've never been asked that particular question before. But I am a native Houstonian. I have moved different places and experienced different places and always come back home to Texas. And so I guess that's my relationship to Texas.
Hi, I'm Mac Beggs. Hi, I'm Mac Beggs. And I go by he, him pronouns. I'm 24 years old. I originally grew up in Dallas-Fort Worth area in a small town, little Ulyss. We call it useless. And that is my connection to Texas. I actually recently and now currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, outside the Metroplex. I went there to compete on the men's team because Texas doesn't allow individuals to compete as the gender as they identify as. So I was like, okay, Texas, peace out, I'm scout. So now I come back whenever I can. I, come back to see and these beautiful people. Like I see my friends in the crowd and my family and like my little cousins here. And so I come back whenever I can because this is my home.
Hi everyone, my name is Sophia Sepulveda, she, hers, and my connection to Texas. I was born in Laredo, Texas, grew up in Nuevo Laredo, came back to San Antonio when I was 17, and I've been staying in San Antonio since 17, so it's been 27 years. The community engagement and advocacy manager with Equality Texas, as well as sit on the board of Transgender Education Network of Texas, STANT. And here are my bosses right there.
My name is Jared Wilbur Janeway, before the pandemic, known probably better as Catherine Gonzalez. They, them, theirs pronouns. I'm the director of programs and operations at Outlook. The COO, I think, is what we've determined, of the Ampersand Group, which I co-own with my husband. I'm also the chair of the City of Austin's LGBTQ Quality of Life Advisory Commission. And my proudest, I'm the co-author of Trans Plus, Love, Sex, Romance, and Being You, a growing up guide for trans and non-binary youth and all people who love them. It is important and I am required by various organizations to tell you that I am representing myself, not them. So whatever comes out of my mouth is mine. As far as my relationship to Texas, it's complicated. I love it here. Don't really feel that back most of the time, but was born and raised here and don't have any plans to go anywhere. Like I told Senator Kohorst, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I'm not going anywhere. So we're gonna have to figure it out.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for being here and for sharing, both your work, yourselves, and these intimate parts of your connections to this land. We're hoping to talk more about that with you this evening. I want to start, those were also beautiful introductions, and I know that a lot of you work with specific groups, one or several, and they are all doing very important work during these very tenuous, scary times in this state. So I would love to hear from each of you a little bit more about the organizations that you currently work with, what the work is that you are doing in the state of Texas right now. How's it going? How are you?
I guess I'll go, since I run an organization directly here in Houston, well, in Texas. So again, I lead the Mahogany Project, which is a grassroots organization in Houston, Texas, where we focus on decreasing social isolation, stigma, and accident justice in TQLG plus communities of color. So a lot of our work is centered around Black and Latinx communities, particularly trans and queer communities. Right now, we are doing a lot of work in two main particular areas, as it relates to transness in Texas, and particularly to being a Black trans person. So the first one is we are working to get a bill passed and hold one of our representatives accountable. So in 2017, there was a death of China Gibson, who was a Black trans woman who went back to New Orleans, Louisiana, and when she was exiting the corner store, she was shot at 10 times. She succumbed to her injuries in the parking lot. And so in 2020, we held a billboard erected in Fifth Ward, which is a historical district in Houston. And Sheila Jackson Lee came out and she talked to us and she told us about this bill that she was going to get passed to hold people accountable and to keep China name alive. And now she's running for a mayoral bid in Houston. So this means that time is running out on a bill that you promised us in 2020 that we have yet to see any movement behind. So my organization has been trying to hold her accountable and also get community members to sign on to our petition. So anybody here can sign on to the petition. You can go to the Mahogany Project and our link tree. You can click it there. You can sign that this bill will impact everybody, trans people across the nation. And so we've been trying to get as many people as we possibly can to participate in that and to sign that bill for us. Additionally, with Texas having such a rich drag history and pageantry history, the Mahogany Project has launched the first and the only drag rapid response fund in the nation, which means we are putting money directly in the hand of drag queens who are impacted by anti-LGBT policies, laws, drag bans, or protests. So these are some of the things that we are directly doing right now to support community.
That is awesome, yes. Yes, I hope y'all are pulling your phones right now.
Yeah, I see nobody pull out their phone, but maybe it's for a point of
Well, I work with Equality Texas and Transgender Education Network of Texas. We are an advocacy and education community organizing body, and what we do is literally do that, right? And we advocate to either pass or oppose bills that are affecting our community directly, and we do a lot of education work within our communities, whether it's medical personnel, where we are working right now with the parole board in Texas in order to ensure that they are treating trans people correctly and intersex people correctly, non-binary people correctly. We were the ones behind many organizations who stopped 75 out of 76 bills last legislative session, and we were able to stop over 130 something bills this legislative session alone, with 3 right now only passing and sitting in front of the governor's office to be signed, which is SB 14, the ban on gender-friendly care for youth, SB 15, which is the ban on trans athletes from competing in collegiate sports, right? And by the way, there is only 0 trans identified people right now playing college sports, and HB 900, which is the book ban or the book burning bill, which we deem that way, right? So we do a lot of work with community together, and we partner with organizations like the Mahogany Project in order to provide funding and money and support in order to continue supporting our community, because it's not only about advocacy, it's about supporting our community directly.
I'm proud to say that I'm actually Equality Texas Trans Advocate of the Year currently.
They have funny hands.
I guess I'll go next. So I guess to start off, I worked back with ESPN and Hulu with a recent documentary, Changing the Game. It featured me, Andrea Miller, Andrea Gearwood, Terry Miller, and Sarah Huckman, and still friends with them to this day. We grew up together all through high school, and at the college level, we still keep in touch with each other. Worked with ESPN 30 for 30, releasing a short film to just show representation of trans athletes, especially in the combat sports world, because there's not many people in the combat sports world that identify me as a real man or even trans women as real women. As well as work with Glisten, Equality Texas, Tent. I worked with a lot of people. And I'm just so glad I've been able to work with now the Mahogany Project. I've been wanting to work with y'all for so long, so I'm so glad we were able to actually meet. Being in Georgia, I kind of developed my own little home base down there. So right now I'm working with the Human Rights Campaign and NGA Equality to really essentially just really talk to these Republicans, especially at the legislative session. They actually weren't initially affirming, but there were some Republicans at the legislative session that really did hear us, and that made us feel really seen. Not exactly what we wanted of the outcomes of some bills, but we get what we get. And and I'm super excited because now I am starting my own nonprofit organization. We just need to get our 501c, and we have gotten donations of over 3,000 articles of clothing in less than 2 months. So I'm in my own little world over there, but I love being pulled out from my adobe, if you will, because I train 24/7. The fighting life is really hard, even for a cis man or even a cis woman. So I'm just so glad to be here and to be able to keep continuing my dream and keep working with these organizations because it's not honestly take away the trans. I'm a white man at the end of the day, and it's about giving the voice to people of color and peoples in our communities because I'm just using the tool. My body will always be a tool, and I just am really glad to just keep advocating for my community because y'all are my family.
Are we gonna stare down?
This is Texas,
I would mosey my way to meeting, sir. Youth was founded in 1990 by 2 graduate students who were studying social work at UT Austin. And they both grown up as queer identified folks in the South in the 70s and 80s, which you can imagine how much fun that must have been. They knew that they wanted to make life better for youth, so they did what social workers tend to do. They created peer-facilitated support groups for youth to come together and talk about what they were going through. So in living rooms, literal living rooms across Austin in 1990, how youth began. And we've done a lot over the last 33 years. At one point, we operated what was either the South's or the nation's first suicide hotline for LGBT youth. At one point, we served primarily homeless and otherwise displaced youth when we were off of the drag. And here we are today, 33 years later, in a 100-year-old house that we lovingly call the Little Blue Bungalow, where we make sure that youth and their families have access to our life-saving and life-changing programs in an environment where they are loved, acknowledged, and accepted exactly as they are, no matter how many times that might change. And that's not how youth saying that gender identity or sexual orientation is a choice. It's simply an acknowledgement that none of us are the same people we were when we were 12 years old. Yes? Thank God I was with you. It's not a good look. We want them to know that we will be there every step of the way, and that change is a fundamental part of their existence. As for the company, the Ampersand Group that Liam and I founded, we harness the power of human connection to put the right kind of stories in front of the right kinds of people at the right times to change the world. That's hard. A lot harder than I thought, but we're doing the good work. And then the City of Austin's LGBTQ Quality of Life Advisory Commission advocates for the needs of the LGBTQIA+ community here in Austin to City Council directly. We have the direct line. We did a study of the quality of life in Austin because it is 2023. the city had not collected any data about our community, ever. So when we started our work in 2017, we would take recommendations to council. Council would say, this is great, how many people is this going to help? And we'd have to say, well, we don't know. You don't have any data. They're like, oh, so we go again. Where's the data? You don't have the data. So finally one day, we sent a recommendation. They said, how many people will this help? And we said, absolutely everyone in Austin. We said, surely you can't be implying that everyone in Austin is queer. And we said, that is exactly what we were saying. And I said, well, that can't be true. And we said, well, where's the data? So we got a study. The study has many outcomes, but what we're working on right now is ensuring that sexual orientation, gender identity, and intersex status data is collected across the city in places where it makes sense in a way that does not create a list of our people. So collecting it anonymously, usually after service provision, so that we know where our people are showing up, how they are using city services, and where it could be improved. Second, affordable housing. We asked all of these people, we spent $250,000 asking every queer person in Austin, what would improve your quality of life? They told us, well, if they can't afford to live here, why we asked them the question in the first place? And third, ensuring that the city's definition and its implementation of equity, which they have rooted in race, which we have no argument about, is the single best predictor of somebody's quality of life outcomes. I can guarantee you that when they are making decisions centered in equity, they are not envisioning how that impacts a Black trans woman. I guarantee you. So all we are asking is when you are having these conversations, let's make sure we have the right person in mind as we are making these decisions. And Trans Plus, we're banned in Florida. If you know anyone in Florida that wants a copy, we will send it to them for free. But until then, I think we're just going to collect the dates. I think is the point at this point.
I did my tour over there every once in a while to piss them off.
You want to talk about NCTE for a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'll give you the 3 highlights. We did this year, 2021, really, 2022 USTS, US Transgender Survey. We can't go into specifics because data scientists would be very upset with us, but we can say that 100,000 people in the US did this survey, which is going to help with ensuring that the conversations that we're having with the White House, because NCTE has a direct line to federal policymakers, we're able to have similar conversations and let them know what's up in most casual terms. The other thing we do at NCTE is the Trans ID Doc Center. So that helps any person in the United States, whatever state that they're living in, access a non-bureaucratic type of online system. It tells them exactly what they need to do in order to change their gender marker on their ID, their birth certificate, things like that. You wouldn't imagine just how complicated some of these forms can be and processes. So we do that to make it a little bit easier, because I spent 3 years trying to get my car insurance and registration done. I couldn't imagine having to sit down and wade through the complicated bureaucracy of changing all of that information. So that's something that we do, and yeah, you go for it.
Yeah, it's something I would add here too, which I think would segue really well into the next piece. The next question is, we do our best to, part of my job is to track every anti-trans bill in the United States, along with our amazing organizing team who cannot be here today. And part of that is supporting on the ground organizations who are combating these bills. So we try to build relationships with the community, follow their lead, and support them where we can to make sure that these bills don't pass. And so currently, a lot of our work with NCTE is tracking all of these anti-trans bills and advocating for the pro-trans bills, which are about 480 more or less around the country, which I think is a huge win. Many of them have passed. So that's something that we're really involved in, as well as federal work like Title IX. We've seen a lot of conversation around trans exclusion and intersex exclusion in sports. And we recently wrapped up a campaign in collaboration with Cal and organizations like Athlete Ally, GLSEN, and so on and so forth, to hold the Biden administration accountable and demand that they finalize an athletics rule that will set an example for local and state level governments to make sure that trans and intersex youth are included in sports. And so we've got a lot of things going on at NCTE, and doing our best to take care of ourselves and support all the amazing organizations like Tent Equality Texas, Out Youth, Mahogany Project, etc., in the work that they're doing here in Texas. So with that being said, speaking of Texas and anti-trans bills and the state legislative session, here in Texas, we saw about, I want to say, if I remember correctly, over 60 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced this session. And I think if I remember correctly from a couple days ago, I think 6 of them are kind of still moving. And last week, a couple weeks ago, we had that terrible bill that passed here. So I'd love to check in with you all. You know, now that the session is wrapping up on Monday, what are some key takeaways that you're walking away from now that session is slowly wrapping up? And you know that obviously the fight is not over. We as a community, you all as individual organizations will be continuing this work, but what are some salient lessons that y'all are taking away from this session?
Personally, we've been in and out of the Capitol. A lot of us have literally just lived there. Thank you, Andrea and Ahmed, for literally just being there for Houston, and they spent the whole day session here, literally. Right, so what it impacted me the most is, first of all, money talks, right, especially when it comes to Republican parties. And we saw this based on the fact that when HB 1686, which is the sister bill from SB 14, was being heard at the in the committee, over 3,000 people literally showed up to oppose this bill. And what did the committee do? They decided to instead listen to their experts, and their experts were literally like, one of them was a chiropractor who does not even treat gender affirming care, right? Some of them were what they continue calling the transitionaries. And these people literally did not even transition during their childhood at all. They transition during adulthood, right? So they continue listening to people who do not even live in Texas. Many of them were flown out of state by special interests, right? Like the Alliance of Friendly Freedom, which is the Moms for Liberty, and Defend Texas Kids, right? So these people have a lot of money. We do have a lot of people, right? But they decided to instead listen to a lot of money instead of listening to the people. They over 2,800 people showed up to testify against the bill, and only 90 showed up in favor of this bill. At the end of the day, only like 10 people were able to testify outside of their special group, right? And they cut testimony around midnight, right? And what impacted me the most is seeing the resilience of our community, because we've always been here, we've always been resilient, right? But and seeing the folks not just showing up day after day, even when they told us to not speak up, but doing the actions, right? We did a Diane that same day to bring attention to the fact that Representative Click was pushing for legislation that A, was misguided and misinformed and based on phony science, and B, that they were not letting Texas speak, right? And another thing, another big takeaway from this session was the fact that our side, the Democratic side, has a lot of learning to do, right? And we saw this, and we saw this when SB 14 was being placed in the House for the second reading. And one of the representatives in Houston, Theory, started spewing very transphobic and a lot of misinformation, transphobic bullshit. I'm sorry for saying that word, but it was a lot of misinformation that she kept on spewing because she kept on relying on groups who have no idea about trans health or trans people except for their money interests, right? So it was very impactful to me that way, and understanding that our job is not done. Yes, we are resilient, but we cannot start in the right. We have to start in our side and continue educating the people who say that representatives and that are on our side, because at the end of the day, many people also voted for HB 900, right? Many Democrats voted for this bill, right? So it is important that we start becoming comfortable and making other people uncomfortable when it comes to talking to issues that are affecting our community, and particularly the trans community.
So I think for
Can I
me,
say something?
yes,
Today also, they voted to impeach. Yes. So that was an amazing thing. This is a guy who keeps on pushing anti-LGBTQ and anti-trans rhetoric, so they voted to impeach him today. And another thing, good thing about the South, Louisiana
Yes.
did not pass their gender affirming care ban on children. So this is the only state in the South that is safe for trans kids to actually get medication. That's all. Sorry.
So I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways that happened, and I'll be honest and say, I have two. One really wasn't from this year, one really happened last year. And I learned that we have to find new ways to get information to young people in communities of color, and particularly Black people. We need to stop explaining information, particularly political information, in a linear way where we tell people, hey, you go out and vote, the people you want win, and all of these magical things happen. And we know that's not how it works. And then when people go and vote, the people that they vote for don't win, none of the magical things happen, and then you have people who you told to go vote pissed off because nothing that you told them was going to happen. But if we explain it in a way, like I think about Schoolhouse Rock, right? And if we explain it in this way that is really non-linear, where a community has this full bite on how the process works and have the ability to understand I can participate in this process at a multitude of points, right? I can participate before it starts in the process, and on the back side of things as well, I can participate. And so I think that was the biggest takeaway that I learned last year that really kind of kept me grounded this year. This year, one of the biggest takeaways happened for me actually in a documentary produced by Diamond Styles, and it's called Empower Her. And it was a conversation between a Black cis woman and a Black trans woman. And in that conversation, the Black cis woman tells the Black trans woman, they tell y'all stuff like PrEP. They tell us stuff like pre-exposure prophylaxis. So when I'm going to the polls and I'm voting against PrEP, I never know that I'm voting against pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is the same exact medication that you're taking. And so my takeaway for this year was we really need to start having more candid conversations about our experiences in community and life as we navigate all of these different spaces, and really share what it is that we experience and how we're navigating these spaces, right? Because can you imagine that we taking this medication and voting and you're voting against it, right? And come to find out, like, wait a minute, now I can get the message that I needed anymore because think about it, but it's something that happens far too often. And the conversations that we are not having that is making small issues like this such a big thing in community.
I felt really empowered, honestly, at the Capitol. it was interesting to see how all the politicians just kind of interacted. And like you would see like, somebody go up for a hearing, then they would go in the back. It's almost as if like they were like pre-checking the information priorhand or not doing their research. And the thing is that there's a lot of misinformation going around. Me in particular, everyone doesn't think that I am an athlete anymore. And that like that's discrediting to me, because then these politicians are then feeding it to the media, then the media is also misinformation on that. And thinks that I'm a trans woman, actually, and is feeding me into that conversation of being a trans woman athlete. I'm just like, no. So being able to, I wasn't able to go to the Capitol back in 2017, 2018, but I was able to this time. And to grow into this body and to look at them in the eyes, finally be like, no athletes are trying to take advantage of like their teammates or anything like that. Like y'all are just like spewing hate. That's all it is. And like there's rules and regulations in UIL that make sure that we are abiding by rules. And so they think that kids are having these surgeries and like not going through the process. And Dr. Jimena Lopez at Children's Hospital, I was under her care for the entire time I was a kid, and I felt so affirmed. Like I felt like if I didn't have that care, I don't know where would I have been today. And I had to navigate around it because I also had to be an athlete. So then the misinformation goes around, oh, well, there's just trans men on testosterone. And it's like, well, what can I do? I mean, the world's gonna spin it how it's going to, but our community has grown so much, and I just kept crying down at the Capitol. I just like, every time I came out, I was just like, it's so empowering. I'm so proud of the people that I've known for so long, and being able to finally see people that I've been seeing online. I'm just like, I'm little one in Georgia, and I'm just like, try to come over as much as I can so I can be with my community, because this is my home. And even if, no matter what they take away from us, and I always tell people this, no matter what they take away, they can never take your soul. They will never take it. You can take away my care, you can take away whatever you want, but I'm still gonna be up in that Capitol fighting tooth and nail. Not only for myself, but for my kids, for the next generation, for these kids that deserve better than what you are giving them.
And on that, when you talk about like this representative saying that little kids are getting all these mutilations and hormones, just keep in mind, Texas leads the nation in the number of uninsured, not only adults, but children. We are number one on the most uninsured children and adults from the entire country. So this is how easy it is for us to access healthcare, which is really not easy at all.
Yeah, I had to pay $6,000 for my top surgery. That was like almost like half my tuition going to college. I was just like, which one do I want more? Well, I guess we'll try to do both. Yeah, I agree with you absolutely on that.
I have been fighting against this nonsense longer than most of the kids I work with have been alive. And I'm tired because of what has already been brought up. They are not interested in knowing us. They are not interested in getting to know us because it's not the point. I'm also tired of playing defense. This is a conversation we have at home a lot. There are amazing organizations doing amazing defense. Not what I was built for, apparently. I didn't ever play a sport, but it wouldn't have been defense, apparently. I am interested in offense. This making sure that people are uncomfortable. Because if I am uncomfortable all the time, I think I should share that a little. No. I also use this always as an opportunity to teach our kids. And what we've pulled from this is using this legislative session as an example to them of what we mean when we say we want you to grow up and be leaders. Because these people are not leading. They are seeking to control. And when you seek to control, bad bad things happen. I mean, I would invite people to open the book and read it, but we can't do that anymore here in Texas either. So let's try not to repeat history, but empower our youth in a way that teaches them what they need to do to go on the offense. Because whether it is fair or not, they will have to pick up this fight at some point. And I want to make sure that they're ready.
To your point about how they don't want to get to know us, so work that I did before NCTE, I used to work at the Texas Senate, and although I didn't work directly with any of the 31 senators, I worked in the print department. And so my role was formatting newsletters, postcards, any sort of marketing materials that would come through. And the print department would format, design, print, and then mail it out. And it was really interesting to work with all their communication directors and comms associates because there's a strategy to the way that they are writing things and negotiating internally about language. Now, there's a lot that is behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of people know, which is that the Secretary of the Senate oversees all of these documents and has to check them for bias. That's kind of hard, right? She tries to do a good job. There's some things that kind of slip through, I think. I'll be generous. But it's really interesting to be the person behind the computer formatting these awful, horrendous things. It was really demoralizing. And after 3 years of that, I had to leave. I stayed because my boss was amazing. Mike, if you're watching this, shout out to you. You're the reason why I stayed at the Senate. And I think that he saw just how awful it was to have to sit there and read this crap and have it approved. But yeah, to your point, like, they don't care. And they use language that's really minimizing. And then someone will say, I don't know, Senator Paxton, which I wonder what that conversation is like right now at home. I wish I was there, fly on the wall. But, you know, they'll say things like, we went down to the Rio Grande Valley to do some discovery. And really what it is like a bunch of them got into a private helicopter or something and they flew around and they met with people who have money probably, and they're not talking to real people. They're not talking to us. They're not asking us what it is that we're experiencing. Because if they knew and we told them, they might have to do something about it. And I don't think that they want to do anything about it. It really is about control. We saw this with Roe v. Wade, right? Like, one by one, they're coming for us. And I really don't want to strike fear into our hearts anymore, because I do want to make room for joy, and I do want to make room for creative expression and artistic, endeavors. I would hate for any of us to have to go home after this and feel worse than what we just got through in legislation session, but it's really hard, right? It's really hard.
It's bittersweet.
Yeah.
Because we're growing our community essentially. Like, we're establishing connections and actually getting to know one another when we did it beforehand. And in Georgia, I had this one Republican. Oh my goodness, I thought I almost went across that bar and got him. And he goes up to this mom, and a lot of parents are there, and he's really, really old, and he comes up and he pats her on the hand, and he's like, "I'm really glad you're up to date with all that stuff." And I was like, "You gotta be kidding me!" And it's just our communities are coming together. It's bittersweet, but I feel like our kids that are growing up nowadays in the young generation, I'm so hopeful for. They're not taking any of it. We're giving the power back.
Officer Paxton doesn't hold any town halls in Texas. So you cannot go after him on town halls because he doesn't do that. Hence, he doesn't talk to the people of Texas.
I want to add, hearing you right, this, what we're going through, what we've been going through, these moments of just distraught and hard times, I feel like I do want to give a shout out to our community. I feel like we are so good at holding each other during these times, and I just want to say let's continue to hold each other when one of us or many of us are experiencing this hurt.
If I can, because you brought up something important, I don't think it's about striking fear. I think, like you said briefly, history has shown us over and over again. There are so many quotes throughout history that has told us, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and if they come for me, they'll come for you. And if there's people who are watching who do not believe this, the signs are all around us. I don't think that you are inciting fear or trying to throw any kind of scare tactics out to community. It's happening around us. And people are not aware, or they say they're not aware, and there's some people who would like to remain oblivious that these things are happening. But history has shown us, and there's so many quotes that say, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu, and if they come for me, they will come for you.
Yes, absolutely, and yeah, there's going along with that, it's being aware and having an understanding. And I was really drawing a blank. It was either Stephen Robinson or James Baldwin that said, like, to be aware is to be in a constant state of rage, right? And so, yeah, and so that actually leads quite nicely to pivot into our next question for all of you, and to what Alex said about holding each other. As I mentioned, I'm running across America. There are long stretches where I don't have phone service, and as soon as I do have phone service, it's just like boom, boom, boom. All of the things that are happening, that number is growing, like the numbers of bills are growing, the numbers of bills passed are growing, which is really the scary part. And I literally physically would not make it from one side of the country to the other. But as I explained, my run is connecting these communities. So I have the immense privilege of talking to people on the ground in the places that are being most affected by this legislation. And what I've learned through doing this run is, number one, I mean, it's incredibly galvanizing because number one, trans people are some of the strongest people ever. We've always been here, we always will be. We will be here long after they're dead and gone, which I consider that later. Anyway, but yeah, and so what a privilege it is to be in community and dialogue with all these individuals, and they are the people that are getting me from one side of the country to the other. They are the people that are getting me to continue to show up. They are the reason that I wake up every day and run 30 miles and sleep in my car and don't shower, because it's like, that's who this is for. That's who we're here for. We're here for each other. We're here for ourselves, past, present, future. And so I would love to hear from each of you, what is your vision? And this I'll just say really quickly is, we're so much on the defense all the time trying to block things that there's very little time for imagination. And I would love to hear what's inside each of your imaginations. What is your vision for the liberation of trans and intersex people in Texas and beyond, and what sustains you through this work?
That's a huge question, so feel free to take your time because, like you said, we don't have time to be imaginative, so maybe let's take time now to imagine.
I feel like we do as well. I've been thinking about this for a very long time, and I kind of want to piggyback on what you said. And, it does suck that these people in these positions of power are saying the things that they are saying. But if we want change, and we want compromise, and we want to be able to live thoroughly as our full authentic selves, we almost have to look like as a rose-colored glass a little bit. I've actually, a lot of people tell me not to talk to a lot of these individuals, but I do what I want. And it's interesting to actually have this sit-down conversation and actually have them talk and just kind of hear what they think and what they've experienced through life. And Sometimes like their political correctness is like, they don't know. I mean, even my own family, and I have to have several conversations, just like, well, no, Granny or no, Papa, like this is where it is now. And it's not because like they're hateful towards our community, but it's because they don't understand. So let's also look at through kindness. Like the big killer of aggression is kindness. Yeah, we just have to peacefully coexist with aliens who come after us. Anyway, but for the vision, like I hopefully want to come back here and get involved with my coach. Like he has already exponentially has grown the women's team nationally. It's very impressive, as well as the men's team and USA Wrestling. And hopefully just to continue to grow the program. And we've had we took over over 100 athletes, kids over up into either Iowa or North Dakota and let them compete. And it's gotten to the points where now females are able to compete in the men's division in USA Wrestling and compete in freestyle and Greco, and they're beating these men. So essentially, like combat sports is opening up the world to show these people that it doesn't matter what you were born as, you work hard at that type of level, you're gonna go somewhere. Doesn't matter who you are, you just gotta put in the work. So that's why I want to come back to Texas and eventually do that type. I'm doing it in Georgia now too, but yeah, just Texas is my home base and always will be. And I want to come back here and bring what I've learned, just being from from the West Coast to the East Coast, going to California, going to Utah, going to Washington, experiencing all this diversity and bringing it back to where the people in my community need to hear it.
So I get to imagine quite often, believe it or not, and I do it quite vividly in color. And I don't do it lightly because there's so many Black trans people that didn't get to do that. And so I make sure to take that time and I honor that time. And I also use that time to envision on how I can make community better for the community that I stand in the gap for. My vision of what I imagine is, I have to start this by saying, I run the Mahogany Project. Again, the Mahogany Project has the Mahogany Center, which is the first Black trans-led, Black trans-founded physical space in the greater Houston area, stretching all the way up from Galveston, probably all the way to Dallas. So we are the only Black trans-led physical space in the area, and I'm happy to say the largest. But what I imagine that being and growing into is a cultural hub that's not only a physical space that occupies a center where people can drop into, but provide housing, provides daily programming, provides meals, provides safe spaces for ballroom community, provides training facilities, operates as a facility for programming like this and conferences and things like that. So it never has to be a place to wonder, where will community show up? There will be a beloved space for a community to exist and thrive in wholeness, right? And so that is my vision. And what sustains me is, honestly, truthfully, wow, this is hard work and there is so much pain and trauma just riddled within this work. I'm actually living a dream. As a little kid, I've always wanted to be a community leader and have a community center where people can come to and just be in community. I was completely enamored by one of my aunts who, in my adult life, I found out she worked at Park and Recreations, but you couldn't tell me that she didn't own the park. Because she was tasked with making sure that there was things going on at the park, and there was baseball games and football games and cheerleading and just community programs and summer camps and just so many things that was going on at the park. So for me, my aunt owned the park, and I was just enamored by the community and the ecosystem that existed at the park, and I always wanted to experience that in my adult life. So that's what sustains me.
Too radical, y'all. Because my idea of liberation as a Latina transgender woman doesn't really even begin with us, right? It begins with Black trans women being liberated, right? We know that the people who are getting killed, the trans people who are getting killed are Black trans women, more so than than Latina trans women, Indigenous trans women, is Black trans women who are getting killed. My idea of liberation means Medicare for all, means healthcare for everybody, means housing for all, means abolishing the racist police that continues euthanizing our communities, means getting rid of the borders, because no freaking earth was built with borders, right? My idea of liberation is ensuring that everybody has a safe space to go to. That is your own. Though it doesn't have to be a place that you can share it with people, right? It's a place that you can call your own and you feel safe, right? My idea of liberation is ensuring that we have the same education that the people on the north side, right? Who have all these computers or all this lab where our children can learn and thrive and be amazing leaders in community and in government. That is my idea of liberation. It doesn't even, again, comes from me is for my communities at work that I might not even live to see it through, but God damn, I'm gonna work so hard to make it happen.
I love visioning work so much. I had the privilege of being able to work on a documentary series about reproductive justice, and we were able to talk about bodily autonomy and what might it look like. Could you just imagine waking up one day and going to HEB and buying, I never pronounce it right, but yes, the abortion pill, and it's just, it's like me ordering contact lenses or something. It's just part of what I do as a human person. And I guess like what my vision is just more centered on like language, because the way that we think about gender affirming care, that also means that new surgery that people are getting to get taller, right? Men who want to appear taller, I would love for them to see that as gender affirming care. I would love for us to twist a little bit and move around in our mind the thing. Right, Rogaine, gender affirming care. And that's what it is, and it's okay to call it that. And not saying, I don't like the division between like PC stuff and wokeness and the culture wars that are happening. I have these conversations with my dad, and I guess because he's like a Joe Rogan fan or something, and he's just like getting all this information about kids who are using like litter boxes. Like it's so bizarre. Just like these stories. Working in comms means also being able to like have stories and share them with people and get the information directly from the source. So part of that is also just being able to share these perspectives that are diverse and wide and not monolithic. Like all of our various identities and ways of being, we're so different. And I would love for people to know that we're also very loved and we're also very respected, and if people care about us, we're trans people, and people care about us and they are fighting for us and they think about us, and we're not alone. No matter what sort of story that they want to tell about us, that don't worry about them, the 1 or 2% of the population, because they're measly, they don't matter. No, people matter. We matter. People care about us, and I think that's part of the vision that I see, just in the switch between how people view trans people in a wider cultural context.
I was getting, Bernice, she looked a little confused when you said about the peeing on the cat litter.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan said that it's not only trans people asking for access to the bathroom, it's furries. So kids go to school as furries, pretending to be a cat, and therefore they want a litter box in the restroom. It wasn't true.
Which is
at
false,
all.
right? It was not true.
He didn't come out essentially. It was like, no, it's not true.
And no, that's the damage that's done, right?
Kids already gonna-
Yeah, like one bro dude says something and it's just like filtered down information, and then I'm hearing it from my dad and I'm like, what the fuck?
By the way, the litter box thing is even worse because there was a litter box at that school, but it was in case there was a school shooting and kids had to go to the bathroom.
That's
That's
dark.
even worse.
That's really dark, yeah.
Thank you.
This is a great time to teach you all the lesson I teach the kids. Never write down something that you can say out loud. Never say something out loud that you can say with your face. Never say something with your face that you can keep to your damn self. What inspires me, my vision, is, and it's what keeps me going, well, besides the spite. I love to think that Lois wakes up every day and thinks of me. I don't know that she does. But Lois, if you're listening. About this time of year, actually, is when a lot of our youth who are turning 18 start to ask essentially the same question. They ask it in a bunch of different ways, but what they want to know is, when I go out into the world, what do I need to do to make you proud of me? Sweetheart, when I run into you for 10 and 15 years, I'm not going to ask you where you went to college, or what you studied, or where you work, or how much you make, or how big your family is, what kind of car you drive, what kind of clothes you wear. I'm going to ask you 3 things. Are you happy? Have you done as little harm in the world as possible? And are you more yourself today than you were in all the days before? If you can answer yes to all of those questions, I'll be proud of you. If you answer no to any of those questions, you can bet we're gonna have a conversation. Because if you're not happy, if you're doing harm in the world, or you're not being yourself, that deserves a conversation. And we're still going to love you through it. Because that's what family is supposed to do. That's what all of this has always been about. I have never viewed my transness as something to be ashamed of. I feel like I won the lottery on the trans part of things. Time and place, I have some comments. Really wish I could have chose different. But this is what I got, and this is where I am. So what gives me hope are the youth, which I do always try to give their voice when possible. Because I think we don't listen to them enough. They are really tired of us expecting them to fix everything. So we have to do what we have to do to make it better now. Dan Savage and that It Gets Better project, when it rolled out, they hated it. They contacted us, wanted to send us videos from the project, and the kids were like, absolutely not. You're gonna sit us down in front of a TV and have us watch adults with money tell us just hold on for a decade or two and it will be fine. Why are they not using their money and their power and their influence and their creativity to make it better now?
Try again.
Yeah, thank you. So, it's the kids. It will always be the kids, which is what's so funny in all of this. Because we go to the Capitol, they clutch their pearls and they say, think of the kids. And I clutch my pearls and I say, I am. We are ultimately wanting the same thing. Just, I know what I'm talking about. Because I've lived it. You have not lived it. That's okay. I can tell you about it. Oh, you don't want to hear it? Okay. So, lots of work to be done. But no defense.
My are, I feel like I need to just like sit and take in all of
No, you got us one big cry
all
over
of
here.
the things
Jesus.
that y'all have shared. Thank you. Thank you for that gift, is what it is that y'all just shared. So just want to acknowledge that we have 2 more questions for folks who are here, for folks who are tuning in virtually. Thank you for being here. So the next question is, one of my favorite things about the work I do is meeting with community, working in solidarity to the best of my ability with wonderful activists and community leaders and organizations like yourselves. And I feel that I'm always learning. I am who I am because of all the people that I've met and have gotten to work with. There are so many people, including you all on this stage, that I look up to and that I love so deeply. And so my question for you all is, there is a lot of amazing work that is happening here in Texas, so many different organizations who are involved in this work, leaders, community members, etc. And I'm wondering what organizations or leaders or community members do you feel like is doing incredible work and should be uplifted in this moment? And can you talk about the work they're doing and who they are and why you maybe look up to them?
Amen and Andrea from 10. I'm sorry. They've been in my life since I was 14, 15 years old, and that, like, everything that I'll let you take that away, because, I ain't gonna take away representation, okay. But like,
You're right.
they just been in my course since day one, and always been having me involved in these different types of events, these conferences, making sure that I can make it to the Capitol, because like I am almost paying like $2,500, $3,000 to $3,000 just trying to make my way of living. And athletes alone like don't make enough money, and that's another thing is that they've really uplifted my voice as an athlete and as a trans athlete to be able to have a platform and to make the money that I need to in order to sustain this life, because a lot of kids and a lot of adults are not getting that opportunity. And they just continue to work with kids, they continue to work with adults, they continue to fight the legislation, they stay until God endless hours at the Capitol. And I'm texting Emmett sometimes and he's just like, oh, you haven't got out yet. I'm just like, man, Father, go home, dude. Like, you also take a break. Self-care, you tell me self-care, you need to self-care yourself. But they're just so amazing, and just,
They actually just ran out of here to go help with getting SB 12 killed. So when you saw them dash out of the room, they actually headed back to the Capitol. And they actually texted me. Yeah, that's my people. I got something to say. I can tell you how to keep it under control.
I can tell you stories for days.
No,
Hold on. Since the was not here, I have a proposal.
Where?
New event, national event, National Transgender Day of Emmett taking a nap.
Let's sign that into law.
Perfect supervisor is Atlantis. So whenever y'all want him to do something like self-care, just say, don't let me call Atlantis. And I promise you, he will do whatever you tell him to do.
Organizations definitely can. Transgender Education Equality Texas, and of course, Organization Latina Trans Texas. We don't talk enough about OLTT. Andrea Molina is a transgender immigrant woman who built a house similar to Mahogany Project, which they house immigrant transgender folks who have been released from ICE. Right, by the way, I abolished ICE too.
Yep.
And so she provides them with housing, gender affirming care. She provides them with name change. She provides them a place to get on their feet and then thrive in the United States, right? So I have so much respect for Ananda Molina and the amazing work that she does with, especially the trans and immigrant community. It's not just Latino immigrants, Black immigrant community. She welcomes to her house, and they have an amazing routine. She invited me to stay there one day. I used to work for Texas Organizing Project, and I had to do a meeting there. And she said, you can stay here, and she has them like running the house, like at 10 o'clock, y'all need to be in bed. But, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, that's a mother right there, and my respect for Ana Carolina, and
Yeah, so for me, again, I would be remiss if I did not bring up my mom, Alanis Mercies, who's the founding executive director of Save Our Sisters United and Save Our Sons and Brothers. And she also works at Tent. She is the director of programs, or she's the director of something. We'll just include that in at a later date and time. But I would be remiss if I did not bring her up. She is a Black trans woman who, before they were doing HIV testing and drop-ins and things like that, she was inviting community members and testing agencies inside of her home to get people tested and housing people who were being kicked out of their homes and things like that through the House of Capri. Additionally, I would be remiss, I heard what you said earlier, if I did not bring up the name of Diamond Styles, who is a Black trans woman who also runs Marshall podcast. That is my auntie. I call her my auntie because she's my fun auntie. You said what?
Tell her I said hey.
I will. I love Diamond so much. If you have never had the opportunity to meet Diamond Styles, I would encourage you whenever you are in the room with either her or Alanis to take the opportunity to meet them. If you've never seen them, they're two bright skinned, look like Amazon ladies walking through the room, and they are a joy and just a light to know. And so those are two people that I was in. Diamond Styles is also the executive director of Black Trans Women Inc., which is a part of the Black Trans Advocacy Network in Dallas, Texas, where Carter Brown is the executive director.
What I really appreciate about all of this are the names. That too often our history gets erased. And so I was also remiss. I was founded by two graduate students who had names.
Yes.
Fun fact. Lisa Rogers and J. Irvin Brodsky, all those years ago, came together in a living room and started this magical thing. Very similarly, a magical thing exists here in Austin, Black Trans Leadership in Austin, headed by Rocky Lane, Naomi Wilson, Lace Milburn, Tabitha Hamilton.
Yes.
Did I forget anyone? I don't think so. They are doing amazing work. Not only did they also do some counting through a community survey and report, which has been super informative. My favorite thing that they are doing is they started the Star Housing and Land Trust. They took the inspiration from Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera's Star, and they've now figured out how to purchase hotel rooms and tracts of land. And they're putting the land in trust so that the people who live on that land cannot be removed by gentrification. Our Black trans family will have places to call home. We haven't previously been able to. Very proud of them for what they do.
A lot of my community is the artist community, and so I have to shout out one of my favorite poets and writers. One in the crowd, one is Rafaela, one an inspiration to us all. The other is KB, who I got to work with at Interfaces and Embrace Austin, which have now since dissolved, but the work that I did with them there was really about amplification of stories and art and culture and navigating space to use. So there's too many white spaces, not enough spaces for Black trans people, Mexican people, just to go open mics, fun stuff like that. So KB, go shout out to KB because I learned a whole lot about disability justice from them. I learned a whole lot about all the intersectional workings of art and nonprofit life and work, and also Rocky. So the thing with this whole thing is 2 months ago, I called Rocky up and was like, yo, I need your help. Do you want to be on a panel, by the way? We're trying to do a run, and then it ballooned into this really big fun thing. He sent me so many names of people to contact. Anytime I have ever needed anything, Rocky has been there like 5 minutes later with like, already called this person, they know that you're about to call them, and here's their number, go ahead and text. Just an amazing leader. Damn, Rocky. Wherever you are right now, man, I am thinking about you.
If I can just offer up one more person, I would like to offer up Robin Pocahontas, who is also the executive director of House of Rebirth out of Dallas, Texas. So if you guys have never heard of the House of Rebirth, please check them out. They're doing a lot of amazing work to house Black trans women, Black trans community in Dallas, and get them the resources that they need to be sustainable. So I would also be remiss if I did not mention the House of Rebirth and Pocahontas as well.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Yes, I hope folks are taking notes of all these incredible people to look up or follow or learn from, and organizations that folks share as well. There will also be a recording of this panel, so feel free to check out our Facebook and rewind some and catch some of these incredible organizations and individuals that folks just listed off. And with that being said, I will pass it to Cal for the last question of the evening.
Thank you, Alex.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for all of those wonderful offerings and for all of that essential, like that is community building, it's like saying people's names, sharing that information, and giving, depth to the work. And I want to say before, in lieu of my final question to end this panel, is that you each are that person for so many other people. The person that folks doing this work are drawing inspiration from, folks that the person that people are learning from, being inspired by, the person that someone thinks about when it gets hard, the person that's, you are the person that people think about when they're joyful or grateful. That's why you're all here. We've just listed a lot of other people who would love to share this community, and build this community with as well, which is really inspiring and encouraging because there are so many of us. To what you said, Ileana, we're not a small number. Trans people, intersex people, and the people who love us, I think, are the majority, actually, of people. So, that being said, I would love to hear from each of you if you have a message for our community, maybe a message for youth that are growing up with all of this, because that's who we're here for. There's a lot of the work that you all do, which I'm so grateful to you for doing. I'm not cut out to do the work of talking to the people that, like Max said, I want to strangle. I'm built for the work that I'm doing, which is being in community with all of you, talking to trans people across America. I'm a teacher, talking with trans youth, stuff like that. And that is who I work for. That is who I am employed by. That is who I want to be a servant to. And so that's what we're all here for, is for us, for our community, for each other. So what is the message you carry and offer to those people that we all love and are working for? Maybe particularly youth.
Well, Cal, or anybody, if you ever need to have me strangle somebody, you know, get the freak.
We do have that on camera.
Come try me. Yeah, I'm a professional wrestler, and if you miss you, I'm going to the OC one day. But seriously though, it's like take away the trans, I'm a cis man, but I want to be able to be vulnerable because I want to give people that are minority groups, especially people of color, the opportunity to be themselves, and these kids. And like, I just remember I was 13, 12 years old, and these old white men would look down on me and tell me, and coaches would just tell me, you can't do that. I'm doing it. So keep doing it, hang tight. It's gonna be rocky, but we're very resilient. And this is a working theory. I always think that trans individuals are trapped souls, and we will always live on forever. Like that is us within ourselves, and nobody can take away your love, your compassion, our sense of community to just see beyond, especially Ileana, what you were saying earlier, like to evolve essentially is it past this traditional way of thinking that we have been programmed for so long. But I'm just seeing a very big change in the kids today, and I'm very hopeful for the future, and just keep hanging tight.
I'm thinking you guys better. And then just kidding. Right. Another name that I completely forgot before I go into a message of hope is Natalie Hilton from the House of the Poor.
Yes.
She's the first transgender woman who actually brought the ballroom scene to Texas, and she's making amazing moves, so follow her. She's doing amazing. I love her. She's my sister. Much kisses to you. And she's also gonna be on the documentary. Please look it up. But I would tell that do not give up. Do not give up, right? Like life is beautiful. Life is beautiful, and it's more beautiful with people who think not just like us, but people who you can get along with, right? And to continue giving help to people. At the end of the day, we're not gonna win if we're not organized. And kind of like she was saying earlier, if we need to stop playing defense and we start playing offense. And the best way to start playing offense is by organize. And I know organizing sounds pretty terrifying to a lot of folks, but organizing is talking to your friends, talking to your family members, ensuring that they're not only voting, because voting is not the last and the one thing. Like she said earlier, like a lot of people is like just vote and everything will change. No, we need to be pebble on these representative shoes, right, left, it doesn't matter, because if they're not doing what you put them to do, then they're not doing your job, and you need to be there, right? Like I'm always gonna be angry because we have to be in order to make change. There's no, we cannot make complacent. So again, you are amazing, keep showing up, and tell your friends to keep showing up, because that's how we get over this freaking hurdle.
I want you to take out your phones. Maybe not right now, there's a lot of steps, but. Only had a heart. One of the things that organizing was very scary to me. And the way I got over it, was that I found the numbers, because that's what they always want you to do, right? Call your senator, call your representative. Okay, fine.
Anyway,
I had to put a reminder to myself in my phone about who these people were. So I created contacts for all of them, and then I put them in a group in my phone called People Who Work for Me. It's an amazing reminder every time I'm told to call somebody, and I feel a little intimidated. I'm like, wait, no, I'm their boss. I get to tell them what to do. Love that part. As for what to say to the youth, I actually wrote stuff down ahead of time, so, because I never want to mess that up. They are taking gender affirming care, but they cannot take away you. Our ancestors have existed all throughout the world and across time, and many of them did not have access to gender affirming care. So, I'm gonna have you make me a promise. Just as we do not deny their transness, do not deny your own. No, this one's for everybody. This is from my book, and it was the very first thing I wrote. And we didn't know where it would fit in. And we got to the end of the book. All right, check that. there's been far too many of those today.
In the last week, even.
We got to the end of the book and we didn't know where to put this. And so I sent it to the publisher and I was like, I don't know what to, I wrote this thing. I want people to read it, but it doesn't fit in the book anywhere. And she said, well, we can just do an author's note at the beginning of the book. It's like, I didn't know that was a thing. I was in the chapter list, I wrote to the chapter list. No matter where you live, it is important to know this. Transgender and gender non-binary people have often held a revered place in their societies. We have been healers, shamans, revered rulers. We are no less than the stars, and we are expressions of all that is beautiful in this universe that knows no other constant but change. So go forward in your life, in the world, knowing that you are perfect, whole, and complete. Operate from a place where you know your own power and marvelousness. And sweetheart, do know that your ancestors were no less than gods. Right? Yeah, okay.
I just want to say personally, I maybe seen you in the past, but this is like me actually hearing you speak, and I mean, I'm still, I'm 24, so still a kid. But I'm over here, like, honestly, internally sobbing because I was in K not too long ago, and they would attack me. I couldn't compete as just a kid, and they only cared about wanting to take away my existence, and I didn't let them do that. And your words are so powerful. So to the kids, like, you're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So for anybody who's watching this and see me as a possibility model, I share with you the Mahogany Project model, which is we got each other. And for me, it was a very simple statement to just say, no matter what you're going through or where you are, who you are, that we have your back. We are your people. We are your tribe. We are your community. We are your family. Whenever we send something out at the Mahogany Project, we always start it off with, hey, cousin. It's even how we even start off a lot of the videos when I do them. I think it's so important and essential for so many of us who do not have family, chosen or otherwise, to have some sense of human connection. For us, it's family, being that voice, that space, that thing, right? And then when you say to the youth, I want to be very particular when I say this. I speak directly to Black trans youth. You like me who grew up in like ghettos and poor communities and went to poor schools and lived in places and spaces where people didn't have the language to understand you, people didn't see you, there was not space held for you. Like, I see you. I see you. I know that you're there. I know that you exist. And if nobody else says that they love you, I do. If you can't find community, come find me, whether it's social or physical. And if I'm ever in a space where you are, I will look for you. I will make it a point to follow up with you and see you. If you are in a space that's unsafe where you need help or community, find me. I'll do my best to get you somewhere safe. I'll do my best to be your family, your community, your tribe. I do my best to help you connect to community, families, spaces, and tribes. So again, to Black trans youth that's out there in spaces that are experiencing harm or spaces where they aren't seen or just they don't have the necessary love that they need, know that you have community out there waiting for you, and I'm willing to open the door.
I'm really thinking about this in like way of like telling your own story, and digging through our personal archives that are internal or subconscious or on our phones, stories like that come from videos and photos of all the different kinds of people that we've ever been. And like our tag photos on Facebook and our tag photos on Instagram, ways that other people viewed us, ways of our people perceive us. And I guess my message to trans youth is those are all you, there will be more of you, and don't let anyone deny the message of your story. You are the expert of your experience. And it's very, very important to hold that space and to make your voice heard by any means necessary. That's like writing a book or getting on Instagram Live, making a TikTok. All of those outlets are so qualified and totally appropriate and fine. There are so many tools out there too that will show you how to do that. And yeah, just you are the expert of your own experience, and no one can take that away from you.
I'm sorry, I'm processing, that's why I haven't put the mic to my phone until Cal was staring me down. I felt like I had to say something. So, and I'm a processor and a feeler. My moon is in Pisces for folks who are tuning in. So. Y'all, thank you. Yeah, I honestly don't know where to go from here. But we are at 8:20. We're 20 minutes over, and I know that some folks have to go here who might have to drive. But I would love to maybe take one question from the crowd if folks have any questions, and if not, that's okay. Like I said, if you do have a question at some point, you can reach out to us, and we'll make sure if it is a question for a specific panelist, that we'll send it over to these amazing folks. But before we close things for the evening, does anyone want to ask a question? D at the front.
I don't know. So I feel like there may be somebody watching today that feels inspired and feels called to take some sort of action. There are some of us who sit and watch and see these things and say, wow, these activists are amazing. But I'm sure there's some inspired to take some action. And so I guess my question is, what are some ways, whether obvious or not to you guys, like what are some things that allies or other trans people can do to make some moves to help our community and to take some action?
Can I actually answer this one first? Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Two things come to mind immediately for me. One, give money to organizations up here and to other organizations in your community. Obviously, the fight is not over, and I think we talked a little bit about the importance of education. And a lot of these organizations up here do a lot of that education and community outreach, and they need money to do that. They need staff to do that. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me. And for folks who are maybe are in the sidelines because they don't know how to get involved, or maybe because they're waiting for somebody else to do the thing, I just want to say you are the one you've been waiting for. You are the one you've been waiting for. And we are here to teach you, and we are here to learn from you. You are the one that you've been waiting for.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I actually gave 2 tangible things that people could do at the very top of the conversation to be actionable and support what it was that we do at the Mahogany Project and could actually be actionable steps for you to participate in the work. And that was 1, sign the China Gibson bill on our website or on any of our social media sites. By signing that bill, that petition, it will give you all the information that you need to contact Sheila Jackson Lee. And you can also contact your local representative and say, hey, why aren't you signing on or supporting the China Gibson bill? So that's something very actionable that you can do and share that with people in your community. And I also said that we have a drag record release fund, but we also have a fundraiser. So also going back to the part about giving funds, we also need people to donate so that we are able to disperse funds to the local drag community and so we can expand the fund and make it a national fund.
I'm not gonna talk about money because you can donate, but if you cannot donate, get engaged with different organizations who are doing the work on the ground, right? Like we do have Texas Organized Project that I used to work with who are fighting for to expand Medicaid in Texas, who are fighting to have fair housing in Texas, to reform criminal justice in Texas. So go to an organization, right? Here at Equality Texas, we do a program called the Equality Leadership Program, which gives you the tools and the information that you need to be not just a badass advocate, but an amazing organizing within your community. And I'm the one teaching the class, so if you want to spend some time with me, you better you can register. Registration starts in September, right? So I mean, there is many things that you can do. And again, not just donating. If you don't have the donation, we need volunteers. We need a lot of volunteers. We need to do data entry. Pride is around the corner. Many of us are going to be working Pride, which is a lot of signing sheets, a lot of stuff that we need to put together while working for things in the ground, like expanding non-discrimination ordinances in San Antonio or even in Houston, right? Which is very needed, right? So like if you don't have the money, show up to those organizations, call them up, send an email, hey, what can I do to get engaged? Because I don't want to be on the sidelines anymore. I've been organizing in San Antonio and around Texas for around 10 years, and I'm telling you, like the first time I knocked on a door and I heard somebody share their stories, it was like a little bit of fire that started lighting in me, and I cannot stop. I just kept on going and going and going, and I'm here now, right? Like you are the future leader, so do whatever you can. If not money, donate your time. That is super important, not only for the survival of Texas, but the survival of our communities.
This was not my original point, but having done more Pride events than you have been, that's the hard part about working it out for 20 years.
I've heard stories.
When Out Youth started, nobody had the internet at home. It's actually one of my favorite stories. You can come ask me about it later, because I know we're over time. When you fill out these sign-in sheets at Pride events, please use your best handwriting. If you want an actionable thing that will take very little effort, write it so that we can read it and put you in the system. Got it?
We moved all digital because of that. We just use iPads to have people sign in because we have thrown away so many signing. Had a tabling been at I won't name the university, had to literally throw away about 7 pages of sign-in sheets because we could not recognize nobody's email or phone number to either email and say, hey, what's your phone number? Or your phone number to say, hey, what's your email? So the information was absolutely useless.
Don't do that to us. We have had, 2023 has been hard. We don't need any more. Ask yourself, so I am actually an introvert, pardon me. Thanks.
Bye.
When you notice the one in the crowd, ask yourself what you're good at, what you feel passionate about. Because often when we sit up here and do this thing, all anyone hears, especially introverts, is like, that sounds like a lot of extroverting and talking to people. You don't have to. Data entry is something that is best enjoyed alone. Baking, taking baked goods to the Capitol or to your local and to this point of like raising money and donating money. My favorite thing that I have in my keepsake box at home is a bracelet that the youngest drag performer in Texas made a ton of these bracelets, sold them, and then donated the money to Out Youth. And it's not enough to build a brand new Out Youth, but it was a lot of money for a kid who made some bracelets. So there are all sorts of ways to get involved. But the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what do I have the energy for? And where's my passion? Because those two things are necessary to sustain you through what we just went through. Got it? Got it.
I want to be respectful of people's time, all of your time, and everyone up here. I'll just want to say something real quick in response to that question is just to not let your love for the people you're trying to serve be undermined by your fear. In the work that I've been doing running across the country, I know that the majority of people care, but there's a lot of fear, and that stops a lot of people. So very simple thing to take away. Do we have time for more audience questions? I do. Oh, I don't think everyone has to answer every question. If you don't want to.
There was one tangible action I did want to mention. Something that you could have access to easily is being able to talk to your friends and your family and your peers about everything that's going on. And basically being that one annoying little family member at every gathering, being like, oh, hey, also you can do this, this, and that if you really want to support me as your child or whatever. So that's one very quick, accessible way. And also, the internet nowadays, you could quickly look up these organizations and find tangible action ways in order to get involved. Absolutely.
By the way, that reminds me of the fact that Abbott has not signed any bills yet, so we can still veto SB 14, SB 15, and HB 900. So all you have to do is contact them. If you don't want to call them, you can go to equalitystexas.org, and it has a link for you to leave a message, right? We still have time to ensure that it's probably not going to happen, but hopefully he can just veto this legislation.
And he works for you. He works for you.
You're his boss. Any, close it? Okay. So we didn't do this before we got a question. So I would love to give all of our panelists the warmest, loudest round of applause.
Also, bigger shout out to Cal because he's running all the way across America.
That's when you know that trans women don't have the same strength. With her, and I will lose.
Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to the people at home watching this. We have some liquids for liquid death, actually, specifically here. That is the liquid. It's the liquid of death. And some other refreshments for all of you. Stretch your legs. The panelists that don't have to leave. You all are approachable, I assume. If anyone has more questions, please come talk to any of us. Again, none of this is possible without NCTE, Alex, Liliana, Ernest, Mac, Sophia, Jaren. Thank you all to our amazing crew. Thank you to each of you.
No, I think we have to leave by 9. I think just a heads up, we want to be respectful of Austin Maker's space. But yeah, other than that, Cal, I think you covered it all.
And also I just want to say, please sit with everything that you've heard today, because it was a lot, and I think that it's very easy to move on. And especially when you're doing this work, you are always in motion. You are always in motion. Capitalism necessitates that. But I think that as an educator, it's one thing. There's 3 stages to learn. It's the exposure, and then there's the reflection, and then there's the internalization. And those are the 3 stages of how we learn. So you've just had a lot of exposure, lots of it. using time to reflect and internalize all of it and have it, and then that's how change works. So, congratulations. Yes. Don't be still for too long. We have like 2 days left.
Yeah.
Maybe be still later.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.